So, hello everyone. My name is Andre Hargrave, and I'm going to switch to the PowerPoint in just a second. And I just want to let everyone know that, after my presentation, ask me the hard questions because that's what I get paid for. So I'm going to switch on over to our PowerPoint, and we're going to see what happens. Let me know if you can see it. There we go. Share it. Okay, can everyone see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so here we go. So as you can see, this is me here, and we're going to talk a little bit about governmental business diversification up under during this COVID process. So one of the things that a lot of companies come to me and ask, they want to know, hey, my B2B market is drying up. Should I enter into the government? I'm in the government. Should I get out of the government because one of my contracts got canceled or put on hold or those kind of issues? And what we're going to do is a little bit today is just talk about how we diversify up under the governmental arena. And so, as Andre stated, I've been in this arena a long time. So I've seen everything from continuing resolutions to to governmental shutdowns, and now we have our first pandemic. So I've seen quite a few things within this industry, and it's been good to me. So one of the things that a few of the things that we're going to talk about today, like on the screen, is one, a little bit about me. Andre did a great job of reading my bio, but I want to give you a little bit more information on basically, like it says here, why am I saying things different than what you're hearing around town, right? Because I know a lot of times we'll talk to people and we'll talk to an agency and they'll say one thing, but reality is something else. So we're going to discuss that a little bit. We're going to also discuss are governmental agencies still purchasing? I have a pretty good philosophy about governmental agencies, and I'm going to share that with you.
I think we have kind of three.
Pardon me? Can everyone still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can.
Oh, okay. Should you start or switch to a different governmental sector? We're going to talk a little bit about that. And then one of my niche expertise is certification. So I deal with social economic certification, state, federal, municipal, specialty, corporate. I deal with those. So different states, different agencies, there's some underlying core things that apply all the way through every certification, and then there's variances. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about growing your business and the real way to utilize a social economic certification, such as women-owned or something to that effect, veteran-owned. We'll talk about that. And then we're going to talk about something that I have a hard time getting small companies to understand, and that's certifications and utilizing the power of a certification, because most people don't realize how powerful a certification is. Although medium and large corporations understand it, we don't understand it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to open it up for Q&A. So as Andre stated, here's a little bit about the person who's speaking in front of you. Service disabled veteran certified. I'm also disadvantaged business certified. I've been HubZone, you name it, everything except woman owned, and I'm not going to get that one. So I've been around for quite a while, so we're going to talk about that. But one of the things on this slide I really like to talk to people about is, in my world, why it's a little different. At the very bottom of the screen, you'll see where it says source, qualify, target, and close. That is what we do. That is the world that I live in. Certifications is just a methodology to get to how do we close the deal. So those kind of things we'll touch on, but we'll go from there. So the first thing we want to do is address if governmental agencies are still purchasing. Everybody wants to know that. And so I've been around for a long time. Here's what I do know. Governmental agencies are living entities, so they're people, right, that basically design and produce, implement policy, along with maintaining infrastructure. But the way they do that is all outsourced. So they do not manufacture anything. So even in the most dire situation, if a government does not become defunct, they still have to buy and purchase. And when you think about that for one iota of a second, it changes your whole perspective on governmental contracting. So they always have to buy. So if you talk to a contracting officer or purchaser or buyer and they say, yeah, we don't have any money, well, you still have to operate. So you still have some form of revenue coming through there. You still have a budget. And rest assured, if they're not buying from you, they're buying from someone else. And if you just understand this very basic philosophy, it kind of changes everything, right? It just lets you know that and we'll get into another slide here that explains it a little bit, but there's always an opportunity. If not with this agency, maybe there's an agency over there who also needs the opportunity. And that's the way you have to see it. Because sometimes we become tunnel vision, right? And we'll think that, this agency, we have 5 major bases here in Colorado. Well, maybe Fort Carson, which is an Army base, won't buy my product, but then I got Schriever and I got the Air Force Academy, right? Maybe they'll buy it. I got Buckley Air Force Base. So it's really just, if we're in the military, we use the term target-rich environment. Please forgive me, but we use that term. And when we're looking at government, to me, it's target-rich environment. So one of the next things is why do we need to diversify? Here's why. As a business consultant for technical business partner organizations like SBDCs, PTACs, or other organizations, one of the first things that we try to get our clients to understand that you have to have short, medium, and long-term sales to grow your company. Short is what is operational, keeps your lights on, right? Medium levels your company, and then you don't have to worry about making payroll and those kind of things if I should, simplify it down. And then you have to have the long term or the bigger deals that actually grow the company and propel it to the next level. So if you look at it from a business or commercial element, that makes sense. But people don't think of that when we talk about government, right? So when we talk about governmental purchasing, here's some of the things that can happen to you. One, the agency can go into a continuing resolution because the people that we elect, I don't get into that. I do vote, but I don't get into who's who on these kind of things. But sometimes they just can't come up with a budget. They just can't get their name on that line to say, hey, here's going to be the budget. So then you move into what's called continuing resolution, where the agencies operate on an emergency budget and wait while they wait for the original budget to come forth. You have government shutdowns, where the government says, hey, we're going on strike, we're not going to do anything. They may not use the term strike, but the difference is the same, right? There's no governmental activity. But even in the midst of that, emergency services has to continue on. So the government still has to continue buying. And then, of course, this is the first one we've ever had. We have the COVID-19 pandemic, and a lot of things did stop, right? A lot of budgets that included a lot of training and those kind of things, maybe they were tampered down for a little bit. But think about it for a second. They just switched over. So now there's all the training and stuff for people who are working at home. How do managers operate, outsourced workforces? All of that kind of stuff is new. So that budget that used to go, hey, we're gonna be training you today on XYZ. Now and that budget technically dried up, and now that there's a budget to train the managers on how to work with an outsourced workforce. You have to kind of understand that. But these are some of the reasons we have to diversify. Most governmental certifications, if we should dive into this, are designed to end. Hear me out. Certifications are designed to end. They end. So either you outgrow them, or and what I mean by outgrow them, you reach the dollar threshold amount. So if you were DBE, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, through any Department of Transportation in the US, it's $20 million. And I know a lot of us are saying, hey, I wish my company was $20 million. But once you hit $20 million, you're out of the program. And then what you do is you then find companies trying to stay in the program, right? But that's a different argument. Then you have federal certifications like 8A. It's only 9 years. After 9 years, you're out. And I'll tell you something kind of funny. When I first started in the federal space with 8As, those of you who are 8A certified or want to get 8A certified, it was 8 years with a 2-year option. So you would be in the program, you graduate, and you can get an extension. That's long gone. So now it's 9 years, that's it. If you're in a hub zone, a historically underutilized business zone in the federal space, every 10 years, the census tract changes. So one, you're arguing, you're fighting to keep your employees and make the requirements of the hub zone. Then the next thing you know, that census tract changes on you. So all certifications in the governmental space are designed for you to eventually leave that certification or graduate from that certification. In the corporate world, they're not designed that way because they have a different fundamental value. So they work a little bit different. But this is why you need to diversify. Nothing's going to stay stagnant. Nothing. Right? So we have to figure out, you know, be able to change with the wind, not just indiscriminately, but follow the budgets and the initiatives and those kind of things for governmental entities. And not all social certifications are created equal. Very, very important. So one of the things I do is I help a lot of companies become certified, right? Now, my take on certification is completely different than probably what you heard. My take on certification is strictly strategic, which basically means if I'm trying to sell to Denver International Airport, right, and I'm a small company and I got to compete with multi-million-dollar, half-billion-dollar companies, I need an edge. What edge can I bring to the table? Because they're going to look at me and they're going to say, Andre, you know, you're under X amount of millions of dollars. Can we really trust that you can do what you can do? Right? So I need an edge. So my edge will be getting certified because I know DIA, Denver International Airport, has a requirement for certifications. So what it does do, it gets me in the room, right? So I've been in a room with some pretty big companies who normally would never talk to me. Never talk to me. I've been at major sporting events before COVID. I would get invited to major sporting events. I'm sitting in a box with major corporations, all because I'm certified, because I understand how that system works. So it got me in the room. So when I look at a certification, that's really what I'm looking at from a strategic point of view. Now, some certifications were originally designed to be a subcontracting tool. This is what gets a lot of companies confused. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about construction for just one second, maybe two. So when we talk about construction itself is an industry that's designed to be outsourced anyway. Hear me out, don't get upset with me. What I mean by that is in construction, if you want to do wiring, you have to be a licensed electrician. You want to do concrete, you got to be a licensed concrete. Can't think of what the actual term for a concrete mason, I suspect, right? So you have to have those licenses. Corporations aren't going to have all those licenses. So by design, that industry is going to subcontract, right? Now, at the state level, when we talk about disadvantaged business certifications and certifications of such, they're designed to be subcontracting. That means you have to go and market to the major corporation that won the deal to become a subcontractor to them. That's how the certification was designed. So if you're a DBE or SBE or something to that effect, and you're trying to become a prime contractor, yes, you can do that. But remember, the certification was never designed for that. So a lot of businesses get frustrated when we're talking about that. Some were designed to be prime contracting. So companies come to me and they say, well, you know what? You know, I do architect. I have an architectural firm, right? And they come to me and they say, hey, you know what? We want to be a prime contractor. Okay, in the federal space. Okay, great. You do know in the federal space, a lot of the contracts are design build. So they're not just set aside for architectural firm, right? But my client is Hub Zone. She wants to get her 8A. All of those things are designed for you to be the prime contractor. They're not designed for you to be the sub. They're designed for you to be the prime contractor. And so then you would be responsible for all the subcontracting. So the reason I bring this up is you have to understand that to be able to first grow and then be able to diversify. And then finally, there are certifications that's designed to be a prime or sub. So MBE, WBE, WMBE, VBE, these are all corporate certifications that allow you to be a prime contractor or a subcontractor to a major corporation. And I know some people aren't familiar with all these different certifications, but just bear with me just a little bit and we'll get there, right? Now, here's one of the big things about diversifying, right? And I work with a lot of defense contractors, and they love defense. I'm a military guy. I love defense too. But at the same time, budgets shift. Now, here are some of the things that actually has happened, right? Where some days I was just sitting there going, yeah, I just can't believe this, right? It happened to me not long ago. But let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Budgets change or they just don't get reallocated. This is why you need to diversify. You have to have, maybe you should have some state contracts, federal contracts, a couple of major corporate contracts on the governmental side, right? So if one budget dries up, it doesn't hurt you too much, right? Agency initiatives change, right? And I have a slide on this, it's kind of funny, but agency initiatives change, right? One day, a golden child, I do this, agency loves me. Next day, relatively speaking, that budget allocation dried up for that particular service, product, or initiative. Now I'm not the golden child. And I've had companies over the years where my firm, we've marketed to actually sell our services. And the company says, you know what, we got this. We don't need you. We're selling to the feds. True story. 4, maybe 5 years later, I don't even know how the guy found me because I had moved to a different state. He calls me and goes, hey, the government quit buying our services. They switched to a more digital type of pump or something it was. Can you help me? By then it was a little too late. So an agency initiatives change, right? You have to diversify. You can't put all your eggs in one basket if we want to use that saying. Contracting personnel leave or get reassigned. Happens all the time, right? There was a gentleman here with a Department of Energy agency, right? I was there when he first got his job. I was there and I was befriending him, right? He was there for a few months, went after a deal at that agency, called, and he was gone. I was like, what? After all that relationship building. A couple years later, the guy's back, right? And I'm like, oh, yes, now he's gone again. So contracting personnel leave, they change, they get reassigned. So not just concentrating on the Department of Energy, maybe you need to do DOD, Department of Energy, some civilian agencies, some federal laboratories, something like that. Agencies can switch contracting vehicles. So if you're in governmental contracting, you hear a lot about certifications, but there's tons of others. There's over 1,400 different kind of contracting vehicles, which are technically contracts that are licenses to fish. So you can get on what's called a blanket purchase agreement with, I guess, the Army. They're also called cooperative agreements. So in your state, you may hear them be called cooperative agreements, right? Where they say, well, if an agency wants to buy it, they have the option to buy it from you because you've won this particular type of contracting vehicle, right? Those things happen. And trust me, you get the newest kid out of the university, he's coming to the governmental agency, he's fresh out of school, and he's gonna change your contracting vehicle because first he has to justify, or her, have to justify their existence. So they've learned how to use a GSA schedule, or they learned how to use 8A stars or vet schedule. And that's what they're going to bring into the agency. So contracting instruments can change or vehicles can change on you. Products change or become discontinued. If you're in the IT business, I feel sorry for you. I know. Many years ago, I was an IT consultant, right? And I actually got tired of going to classes in school to learn the newest thing. I just physically got tired of it. Every time I turned around, there was something new. And I just like, I'm not going back to school anymore. So products, they change, they become discontinued. And if your whole business is based on that particular product or service, you're going to have to diversify. Major clients don't pay on time or just don't pay. So don't think for a second if you have major corporations as clients that you're going to always get paid. No, it doesn't work that way. And an agency can easily push you out 120 days before they pay. And if you're a subcontractor to a major corporation, and some of you all probably have done this, submitted your invoice, and then they said, we haven't gotten paid by the agency yet. What? Yeah, I hear that a lot. It's not true, but you hear that a lot, right? Agencies do pay, and they do pay on time, unless you don't invoice properly. Certification requirements change, right? This happens all the time. I have a client who's certified woman-owned, economically disadvantaged woman-owned. We had this contract. Now the contract's coming up for rebid. We think we're the incumbent. We got this. And then the contracting officer comes out and says, hey, we're going to, Andre, that's great. That's awesome. You all did a great job. But this time it's going to come out service disabled veteran woman-owned. What? Right? My client's woman-owned, but she's not service disabled veteran. Oh, Andre, I'm sorry. That happens. Now, you can get upset with it, or you can diversify and go to a different agency. That's what I choose to do. I choose not to make enemies. That's just me. Contracts get consolidated. That means there's consolidated and there's bundled. Basically what happens is the agency, and I'm in a conference room and there's chairs in here. And let's say the agency wants 50 chairs for its conference room, small business. Awesome. Then something happens and the agency comes back and says, hey, we want chairs for all of our agencies. So where it was 50 chairs is now maybe 5,000 chairs for all of our departments, right? So they just consolidated light things and put them and brought them together. Now it's no longer small business because it's too large. It's outside the threshold. Or bundled. Bundling is illegal, but it happens every day, right? So bundling is they wanted the chairs and also they need pens and paper, right? Because the agency needs pens and paper and they're gonna write it up under the same instrument. That's a bundle. People who sell chairs, I guess technically could be an office supply place, right? So, now they need to also quote pens and paper, right? That's a bundle. So a lot of small companies aren't going to be able to go after that, but that's sometimes what happens. I have a really cool story about the Pentagon and a bundle, and if I ever do this again, I'll tell the story. Should I start or switch to federal SLED? And if you're not familiar with SLED is state, local, and education agencies, right? Or corporate supplier diversity. I get this a lot. A lot of people ask me this. And my answer is real simple. Follow the money. Agency or the agency initiative or the bundle, not the budget, right? So give you a perfect example. I have a niche market where I can work with a lot of economic development agencies, and we're pretty good at it. I've been doing it a long time, right? But if you ever want to see an agency initiative change like the wind, work with economic development, right? So depending on the governor who comes in, I love all the governors, right? I love all the governors, mayors, right? Depending on who it is, they're going to all come in with their initiative. One initiative may be in Boulder, Colorado right now, we have a huge initiative for the homeless, a very noble initiative to get the homeless off the street and those kind of things. Great. In Denver, there's a different initiative, right? And so you have to be able to adjust. So we've been very, very fortunate where we've been able to, within our little expertise, been able to target a lot of different types of contracts because we understand the initiatives. And where there are initiatives, there's budget. Always remember that. Where there's an initiative, there's a budget to do that. Now, here's the part that I was going to tell you that's kind of funny. So when we talk about agency initiatives, some of you all may remember Star Wars back when President Reagan was in office, right? Then all of a sudden, the last few years, it was all about cyber initiative, it still is. Then the initiative turned to PPE, protective equipment because of COVID, and the biomedical industry. Those are initiatives, huge amounts of money behind them, right? Then we got the Space Force. Don't really know what that's going to look like, but we got the Space Force. We got interstellar travel, and some people are going out there, interstellar travel. Think about NASA. NASA still has billions upon billions of dollars to put somebody on Mars. And we have big events here that NASA comes here, that some of the organizations I work with, we hold these events and stuff like that. But then we also have the border wall, right? It's a big initiative still out there, right? I actually had a client who lost his contract because the money was pulled from his contract and sent to the border wall. So when he called me, all upset, the only thing I can say is, hey, what other contracts do you have going on? Because it's time to diversify, my friend, because what you were doing isn't going to work now, no, is it? Right? And so you have to be able to do that. And if you're in the governmental space, you have to be able to just be flexible. Because as I stated, what's the golden kid this year may not be the golden kid next year. What type of agencies do you feel the most comfortable marketing to? This is awesome, right? Because guess what? As far as I am concerned, it is where you feel comfortable. Some people feel comfortable with DOD. The individuals who work for me are all military, right? And we get together and we're on the phone and you think we're still in uniform, but we're not, right? Some people like that. Some people don't like that. I've worked with companies who specifically said no military. Okay, I have to respect that, right? But where do you feel comfortable? Do you feel comfortable with the local agency? If so, that's where you start. I'm not going to expect you to be sitting in a box seat with the CEO of major corporations if you don't feel comfortable there, right? Eventually you should feel comfortable there, but you may not feel comfortable. And a perfect example of me is I grew up with physical sports, but now everyone's saying, hey, Andre, you want to go play golf? I got nothing against golf, nothing. Personally, I never learned how to play golf. Right, so I'm very uncomfortable on the playing golf, right? And people ask me all the time. They say, Andre, hey, you know what? You could do a lot of business if you go out and play on the golf course. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to win. I don't want to play a game I'm not going to win. I want to win. So even I'm uncomfortable. So I have to take some lessons. I have to be humble and not just try to win, but I have to learn how to play at that next highest level that I'm trying to get to. So go to where you feel comfortable. You don't have to do what people say. You know, you don't have to just target solicitations. You don't have to, unless you want to, go to events. Maybe you're strong on the phone. I have people who work for me and that's all they do is they're on the phone, right? And they're talking to agencies and I'm amazed at the kind of information they get. And I'm like, whoa, I got 15 years on you. And they come back with information. I'm just like, man, are you sure you didn't work for, I don't know, some intelligence agency or something? Because just by this simple little phone call, you got all this information. So it really depends on where you're comfortable at as far as diversifying and moving into other agencies. Okay. Sorry about that. Looked like we had a little bit of a misfire there. Can everyone still see my screen? No?
No, we can't see it.
My fingers are too fat. Anymore. Okay, let's see what we can do here. Let me see. A little bit of a misfire. Let me see, can I get it back up? Can you see it now? No?
It's trying, I think. Yeah, there it is.
All right. So it looks like we were 1 or 2 behind. So let me go here. And I'm almost done. But also if you have, I know we're going to have Q&A after this, but I get so excited. If you have questions, please let me know. Because I often make a joke that I've been doing this for so long that no one at my house wants to hear about it anymore. So when I get a chance to talk to other people, I just, I love talking about it. So here's some food for thought. Think about this for a second. Just think about it. There are over 15,000 federal purchasing locations globally. That's US. 15,000 agencies, that not individual agencies, but purchasing locations. So one of the examples I give a lot of times is we have a big federal center here with, I think it's like 80 agencies over there, and people will go to those federal headquarters or regional headquarters, and the purchasers will say, or the contracting people say, oh, we don't buy your product. Don't. That's something different. And I'll say, okay, so what? Right? You went to the Park Service. I love the Park Service. If anybody works for the Park Service, I love you all. But you go to the Park Service, Parks headquarters, and say, we don't buy your product. And they'll come to me and they'll say, Park Service said they don't buy my product. Okay, there's how many federal parks? Oh, there's like 200 federal parks, 100 and something, right? Almost 200 federal parks. Do they buy your product? Well, I don't know. All I know is headquarters. Go talk to the other parks. If there's a warranted contracting officer there, they can buy your product without going through headquarters. Just saying, right? There's over 54,000 sub-governments in the United States. Municipalities, cities, counties, all of those people buy. They're always buying, right? They have to fix roads. They have to fix traffic lights. They got to do something, right? 54,000. Now, if you target, here's something that's kind of funny for you. Let's say you target IT managers. Maybe that's who you sell to, IT managers, right? If we're not talking about the feds, we're talking about sub-governments here, cities and below, 54,000. Just by the pure luck of odds, one out of 100 is going to say, hey, let's have a meeting. 10 out of those that says you set up meetings are going to sell. It's just numbers, pure unadulterated numbers. So you don't have to necessarily get into all the politics and rules and regulations that deal with federal contracting or local municipality contracting. Just for the simple fact of 54,000 individuals that you can talk to, you're going to be successful. You're going to automatically diversify and be successful. It's just the nature of it. And I try to get small companies to understand this. All Fortune 5,000 corporations, the largest corporations in the United States, have a supplier diversity program. Supplier diversity program specializes in the working with or subcontracting with women, minority, transgender, veteran organizations. All of them do, right? Now, this last piece is a little erroneous, and here's why. When I talk about a Fortune level corporation, I talk about any corporation that's $1 billion or more, right? When we look at organizations like the Global 5,000 or Fortune 5,000 or Fortune 500, there's more organizations with supplier diversity programs than what you may think. So selling into those programs is another way to diversify. And what people don't realize is when you sell to a major corporation, if I sell my services directly to that corporation, I am a prime contractor. That's amazing. I'm the prime. Now, if that corporation is selling to another organization, then I become a sub. I'm a sub of who's the actual end client, right? But depending on if you stuck on being a prime contractor or a subcontractor, selling to corporations is B2B. And that's what you have to remember. It's a B2B sale. I get so excited about this because when I'm trying to get companies to understand and they get this image in their head about selling to the government, I'm like, it doesn't have to be that way. There's a whole myriad of ways to market and diversify within the governmental sector. And I'm almost done here. All right, so I'm almost done. All right, let me just make sure. Yep. So you see it says no excuses down there. So one of the big things right now with COVID pandemic, here's a question that I get, and it's a serious question. It says, I had to get a PPP loan to keep my employees. Will it affect my contracts? And the answer is no. It will not affect your existing contracts. Let me tell you how it will affect you though. Now, certifications are different. And whenever we're dealing with our government, it's not like everybody talks to everybody. So where I would understand if I was looking at your numbers and there was a dip in your numbers, and then all of a sudden you're flush with cash, I understand that. But you're flush with cash, but your sales didn't increase, right? I understand that. But when we go to get certified, they're going to look at your numbers and they're going to say, wait a minute, we got this issue. Please explain, right? There was a dip in cash. Then you were flush with cash, but your sales didn't increase. Something went awry. And you're going to be like, well, it was COVID. It was COVID-19. And they're going to say, we understand, but you're going to have to write a letter, right? Now, maybe your books now show a negative. You're in negative sales. If that is the case, chances are most certifications you will not qualify for. So just be prepared that you will have to explain that. It's always an argument. So just about anything can be handled. If there's any attorneys on the line, they can yay or nay this, but you can always make an argument, right? So just be on the lookout for those kind of things. Now, one of the things that it will really hurt you at is, let's say that your numbers, you took out a PPP loan and now you've exceeded the threshold for becoming certified. Maybe your net worth shows differently, or a lot of things can happen with, you know, the movement of numbers, because that's how most certifications track you. Now, one of the things where it's going to really hurt you is if you're going after a major corporation's contract and they say you have to be at least $3 million in sales. Well, in 2019, 2018, maybe your company did that. Now, all of a sudden, you're at 1.8 million in total sales. That corporation may not understand that. So just as far as some of the fallout from COVID, these kind of things are actually real life things that can come about. So I just want people to understand that. But as far as it affecting your contracts, no, it won't affect your contracts, right? So with that said, what I would like to do now is just open it up for questions. You know, so I've been in this industry for a long time. I like the hard questions. I like to think, you know, but if you have any questions about certifications, the best way to diversify, you know, maybe you talk to a corporation and they told you this. Let's dissect that. Let's see what they were really talking about. And so I like to turn it back over to Andre and go from there.